Rebuilding a rust-proof Land Rover. This is part 7. The rebuild job is progressing well and the new dashboard is in place. In this episode I show how I made some stainless steel fittings and mounted the inertia reels for the seat belts securely to the bodywork. This involves some machining in the lathe. But first, a quick look at the dashboard. I never realised when I rebuilt this Land Rover in 1999 that the dashboard that I'd fitted was one of these, a Defender dashboard. I could not get a dashboard for a Series 3 or a Defender at an affordable price, but eventually I found one at a company called Blanchard's, which thankfully is in a place called Shipton Thorpe, which is very close to where I live. And now you can see the second-hand dashboard fitted in the Land Rover. This Land Rover is 54 years old, so legally it doesn't have to have seat belts, but personally I don't think it's a sensible idea to drive a vehicle on the road without any seat belts, so I bought some. They weren't very expensive and they are of the inertia reel type. These seat belts need to be attached to the vehicle in 3 places. One is down by the door, the other one is behind me, and the last one is on the side of the seat base. The 2 parts that you click the seat belts into also mount on the seat base. I fitted the driver's side seat belt directly to the bodywork by drilling out one of the pop rivets and replacing it with a large bolt. The hole needed to be enlarged considerably and I ended up using one of these, a hole cutter. This, by the way, is not the full sequence as it did take rather a long time. While I'm doing this, I'd just like to mention that yes, I know this is not a steam engine, I'm perfectly aware of this, but there's more in my life than steam engines. Generally, I make a video 6 days a week for my Patreon supporters and periodically for YouTube. The frequency of the YouTube videos, though, does vary throughout the year. There are certain months where it's not practical to upload every day because the ad revenue is very poor. This, however, does not affect Patreon, unless I'm ill, which is very infrequently, well, apart from the cancer. I even managed to continue making videos in the afternoons of the morning sessions of radiotherapy. These days, the revenue from the videos is how I make my living, or at least a good part of it. The rest comes from the recording studio and jobs that I do for different customers. One Patreon, who subscribed at the rate of $2 a month, cancelled his subscription and left me a message saying he wasn't interested in Land Rovers, although he did then click on go to free subscription, which I don't allow. Anyone going from paid to free subscriptions has to be blocked. I can't do this for nothing. Believe me, it takes a lot of effort. Anyway, now I'm in the workshop and I'm machining some pieces of stainless steel. This is really hard stuff to machine. So here comes the tutorial content as usual. I'm using my Boxford lathe for this. I need to drill a 1/2 inch diameter hole all the way down this piece of bar, but I can't do it in one. I have to do it with a pilot hole first, then a slightly larger drill, and then finally I use a twist drill of 1/2 inch in diameter. I don't know what this bolt is. It's stainless steel, but it fits in a 1/2 inch hole and it's a good fit. I am not entirely stupid and I do actually understand the metric system, but most of the sizes that I work in are imperial. They're imperial on the drawings, and generally speaking, on model engines I don't like to mix and match thread sizes. Most of the fittings on this Land Rover are imperial because of the time it was built. It was first registered in 1971. Originally, I machined and drilled these pieces of stainless steel and purposely left them a bit too long. The idea being to try them for size on the Land Rover and then cut them to the correct size. While these parts were cooling because they got very hot during the machining and drilling process, I thought it would be a good idea to give the base of the air filter a coat of gloss paint. Originally, I painted it in satin black, but this is gloss black and it looks a lot better for the job. This is the paint that I used and it's very good. C71 black gloss paint from HMG Paints. This clip shows seatbelt fixing number 1 bolted to the bulkhead. Just by elevating the guide for the seatbelt, the amount that you see, it's much better and it goes back into the inertia reel far quicker, as there is much less friction between the seatbelt and the metalwork of the body. One down and one to go. I'd already drilled the hole at this side. because at first I mounted the seatbelt guide directly to the bodywork, and this was no good at all, as I've just mentioned. By the way, I don't like these seats. These are the standard Brit-Part slab seats, and apart from being very uncomfortable, they push me a little bit too far forward. The backs are too thick because I am a large fat person. The previous seats that were destroyed by having a log burner fitted in between them were perfect. I'll have a look on eBay and see if there are any similar thinner seats available. Today, Wednesday the 11th of March, it's surprisingly cold outside, but the breeze is okay to blow away the dust. However, I soon got too cold and went into the workshop. Here I'm in the outer part of the workshop where I do most of the dirty jobs, silver soldering and painting jobs. I'm using this really excellent Bosch battery-powered sander. This is a really useful tool for me, not just for sanding rusty metal. I mainly use it for sanding new metal to give the metal a good key for the paint, and I can't believe the battery duration between charges. To get through these sequences, they are running at quite a high speed, and in no time at all, it's time for the painting. I'm using the usual self-etch primer from Autopaint Northern, which goes on very well. The temperature's a bit low for this job, but at least it's not wet. Etch primer does not like a damp atmosphere apparently. This will be okay. I occasionally heat up the parts before I paint them, but then I generally don't get good results. What I'll do before the top coat is open the door into the main workshop and leave the heating on for a while. Then the outer workshop will also get warm. Then I will spray the top coat. You're not really supposed to put quite as much etch primer on at one go. I just keep rotating the part until I get a good covering. By increasing the thickness of the coating, it allows me to give it a gentle rub down with some wet or dry sandpaper before the top coat, and therefore obtaining a better finish. Land Rover air filters for Series 2A and 3 are of the oil bath type. They have two elements that get soaked in oil, and this attracts the dirt. Simple and clever. Here's the usual gratuitous shot of the paint drying, and while this is happening, I'm going back outside to remove the residue of a sticker I put on the Land Rover in 1999. I'm using 120 grit sandpaper that should be used with my orbital sander, but it's much better doing it by hand. In this area, there's not enough room to work with the orbital sander. What I'm doing is patching up the bad bits and covering the marks where the stickers have been. A quick look at what's left of the transmission tunnel. I really don't know what my friend the late Ken Rowley was thinking when he chopped up the original transmission tunnel. The good news though is I got another one from Blanchard's, a place very local to me, and it's currently at the powder coaters, which is even closer. This is a quick shot of what's in the back of the Land Rover. There's still quite a way to go yet. And I will get the job done and the steam engine videos, so please don't worry. That's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.